What's up? We playing Combat Mission Cold War. Playing it again. Also I just took a massive shit. But anyway, yeah. So this mission is Skirmish at Sichenhausen. I think that's how you fucking say it. I don't know. Sichenhausen. So what's the situation? It is May 1st, 1981. It's 11 a.m. in the morning. Temperatures are cool. The sky is clear. There's a gentle breeze from west to east. And 2 days ago, the shit got hot. The Soviet 8th Guards Army is pushing down their anticipated axis of advance. Friendly forces have responded and are defending, but shit's starting to go downhill. 5th Corps commander wants to relieve some of the pressure that our friendly units are feeling as a result of the Soviet push. In order to do that, we're going to threaten the enemy's flank. Alpha Troop 111 Armored Cav will secure Sichenhausen no later than 1200 1 May 1981. So that's 1 hour from now. Part of our mission is to provide intelligence on the bridge and on the enemy in order to facilitate follow-on friendly counterattacks. So the enemy forces. S2 speculates that the enemy is a reconnaissance battalion of the 39th Guards Motor Rifle Division. HQ has already reported that 2 BRDMs came down the main road and entered Sichenhausen moments ago. An additional 2 BRDMs have been spotted on the high ground to the east. More enemy reconnaissance elements are expected to be in the area, and they're most likely reinforced with a flank security element, which typically consists of up to a platoon of combat engineers and anti-tank assets. We are likely a larger and more powerful force than the enemy. However, we have limited assets, so speed is the plan that I'm going to go with. So what are we working with? Well, our unit is Alpha Troop, 1st Squadron of the 11th Armored Cavalry Regiment. We have the Alpha Troop Commander. We have a forward observer team. And we have an anti-air team with a FIM-92 Stinger. Stinger is better than the Red Eye 2, flies faster. It has an IR seeker that's better at defeating enemy countermeasures, and it has a greater range. They're all riding around in M113A2s. This is the version that was introduced in 1979. It has more interior space because they moved the armored fuel tanks to the sides of the ramp. It is a bit more reliable than the older versions, but not that much different. We also have 1st Platoon from Alpha Troop. You have the Lieutenant and his headquarters team, and then you have 2 dismounted scout teams. The headquarters element and the scout teams are all riding around in M113A2s. This platoon also has 4 M60A3s. This was the last update to the M60. The A3 version has a Raytheon tank thermal sight, or TTS. This allows the gunner to see through things like fog and smoke, and it also eliminated the need for the big IR searchlights that are on the older versions of this thing. This platoon also has 2 M901 improved tow vehicles. It is a dedicated anti-tank guided missile version of the M113. It has a 152 millimeter improved tow system on it. It has thermal sights and dual launchers for the main weapon. It can be fired twice before it needs to be reloaded. We also have an attached element of engineers with us from Bravo Company, 58th Engineer Battalion. 1st Platoon consists of an LT and his headquarters team, as well as 2 6-man squads of engineers. They're all riding in M113A2s, and I'm going to be using them as infantry because for this operation, they're my largest dismounted element. For fire support, we have Alpha Troop's organic M30 mortars. They're 107 millimeter, and we have 3 of them. All right, so what's my plan? Well, first, I have my headquarters element with the troop commander, the AA team, and the forward observer team on the high ground to the west. They have a great vantage point to get visual contact on the enemy, and from that vantage point, they can call for fire. The first element that I'm going to move up is my tanks in blue. They will be split into 2 sections, Alpha on the left and Bravo on the right. They're going to very quickly move up, set up, and fire on anything they can see. On the flanks of my tanks will be my scouts in yellow. They are also split up into 2 sections. On the left is Alpha team and a single M113, and on the right will be Bravo team with 2 M113s. They are moving up with the tanks to help with situational awareness and flank security. Next up are my tows in pink. They're going to move up once the tanks and scouts are set and establish an overwatch for the rest of the troop. They will be watching the high ground to our east. Once the tows are set and the tanks are online with the scouts, the engineers will get called forward to link up with my tanks on the right and breach into the town. From the start of the mission and throughout the course of this mission, I will have a harassing fire mission on the high ground to our east. I don't want anybody to occupy that, and so I'm going to continuously drop artillery on it to dissuade the enemy from going up there, or maybe to remove his reconnaissance elements if they are already there. The second phase of my plan is the breach. At this point, my alpha section is going to reverse from my left flank and relocate to my right flank on line with Bravo section. While this is being done, my scouts will also regroup on my right flank, establishing a support by fire to support the breach and the attack on the bridge. The engineers will then move up with the tank in lead and dismount in the town. All vehicles are going to pop smoke, and the engineers are going to dismount and quickly take control of the breach point. After establishing control, they are then going to begin clearing buildings up to the position of the tanks. They're going to do this until they are online with the tanks. At this point, the bridge will only be a little over 100 meters away, so I'm going to go for an all-out assault. Once I have taken control of the bridge and the surrounding buildings, I will then begin to quickly reorient my forces for a hasty defense. The engineers and the scouts will garrison buildings with their Dragon ATGMs, and the tanks will establish themselves throughout the positions of my engineers and scouts. The tows will then move up, and they will set along the southern portion of my position. This will be a reverse slope defense. The enemy should not be able to see me until he is close enough for me to engage him with all of my weapons at once. It is likely that he will not see me first either, because he will need time to search after coming over the hill and down towards my position. This means I will be able to engage him piecemeal and leverage the full firepower of my troop against him. Like I said, speed is my plan. I know I'm assuming a good bit of risk, but I think it's worth it. There's a good reverse slope position on my east side, and there's only 4 BRDMs that are stopping me from taking advantage of that. I need to get in there, get my guys in, get their guys out, establish my hasty defense, and get ready for the enemy counterattack. So right off the bat, my tanks start moving, and my scouts are going to follow shortly behind them and establish that flank security for them. They're going to move up here, they're going to establish that line, and get ready for the next step. So just a couple seconds after stepping off, my harassing mission that I called in on the high ground to the east starts to fall down, and hopefully it can keep the enemy off of that hill, or maybe if he's got some reconnaissance assets up there, it can stop them from spotting on me, and maybe stop them from calling artillery as well. My scouts have linked up with the tanks, and they start dismounting their guys and pushing them up on line to establish that support by fire that we're going to need in a little bit. My command team on the hill to the west starts to get spots on enemy vehicles, tanks, BMPs. Still pretty far out, they're way across on the other side of the map. But they are moving, and it looks like they're moving towards me or towards that high ground, and that makes me a little nervous. As you can see, my engineers are now moving forward. My tanks and my scouts then start taking small arms fire from the direction of the bridge. Tanks then get into contact. The rear tank has contact on his left side in the building. It's infantry. And there's also spots infantry down the road in a 2-story building. At this point, the lead tank starts taking 50 caliber fire on its left side. It's probably from a BRDM. One of my scout teams moves up to get a better position so that they can contribute to the support by fire. the tank commander gets eyes on the BRDM that was on the left and takes it out. And at this point, my engineers are starting to conduct the breach along with the tanks. While my engineers and tanks are pushing into the breach, my support by fire element continues to suppress the enemy in order to keep them either distracted or keep their heads down. I'm really not receiving too much fire at this point. I have showed up with pretty overwhelming force and some good old violence of action. My tanks continue to pound away on the left flank. Seems like there's an infantry team in there, and that's the building that the BRDM was behind. So I'm just going to try and level it or scare anyone out of it. At this point I start pulling that left element back to the rear so that they can move onto my right flank online with the breaching element. And my tanks in the breach begin firing at the first floor of all the closest buildings so that maybe she can move up. That's when I decide to pull my APCs back. They've already dropped the guys off, there's no reason having them up there. And I begin pulling the tanks up to establish that strong line that I'm going to need to push forward. I get one of my infantry teams to go and clear out one of those buildings that the tank has been firing into, just so I can see past the smoke before I push with the rest of my guys. My engineers begin to push through the buildings and clear up to the tanks. The squad enters the house and finds 4 dead Soviets. My support by fire is still going at it. And my engineers begin to get online with the tanks, as well as that element that I maneuvered onto my right flank. Everybody's starting to get in position. We're starting to establish that line. My breaching element is still taking small arms fire. But luckily I have tanks. Now that the line is established, I begin my assault. My engineers turn the corner and shit their pants because there's a BRDM right there with a Dishka aiming at them. They are able to take it out with a law before it kills anyone, right before the tanks blow through that line. The engineers continue to push through the objective and begin to occupy the key buildings around the bridge. At this time, I'm already moving my support by fire and getting my guys reoriented into that hasty defense. My toes begin to move up and get eyes on that high ground and find good spots amongst the buildings. Or not so good spots, but they're there. My artillery continues to suppress that high ground. My ATGM teams are starting to get established in the buildings. Still no eyes on the enemy on the high ground. Hopefully my harassing fires mission is doing its job. My vehicles have all regrouped with their dismounts and equipped them with Dragon ATGMs. They take that equipment and they start moving into the buildings to establish their defensive positions. Meanwhile, my command team begins to spot enemy BRDMs.
Sarge, we spotted enemy vehicles.
And they're on the high ground and to the left of the high ground. The shelling continues, but still no significant enemy contact. They haven't made a move yet. Still not seeing them in high numbers, but we'll see. Not even a minute later, we spot BRDMs on the right flank. And we begin to fire dragons at them.
Enemy vehicle ahead.
Enemy armor sighted.
We then get eyes on a T-64 on the high ground, right in the middle. He's quickly taken out. The situation continues to develop, but I'm definitely getting an upper hand. One of my toes is not in a good spot. Fires off a missile, but BMP starts hammering him, and I lose 2 guys. At this point, I'm really starting to fuck up the Soviets pretty bad. They come over that hill and I just nail them. Usually it's more than one gun. My HQ team and the forward observers, they start spotting enemy reconnaissance elements on the left flank. And I get another dragon launcher off, killing an enemy EMP. One of my M60s is able to get a 2-for-1 through an ATGM, BRDM, and into a T-64. The dragons continue to launch. This one misses, hits right underneath the front of the BMP. One of my tanks starts to get peppered with the cannon from a BMP. And then this BMP gets a big ass hole blown right through it. Yeah, the Soviets are not having a good day. They're really getting eaten up coming over that ridge. As soon as they come over, they get targeted. And then they're quickly put down.
Enemy vehicles ahead. Burn, baby.
My tanks on the south side start to spot infantry on the ridge, and they start to put in work with the 50s. It now appears that I have an entire reconnaissance platoon on my left flank, and they're starting to get kind of ballsy. They're starting to move up pretty close. Bad move on their part, because they just start getting slaughtered like the rest of them. I always forget about Black Blast in this game. The BRDM that recently got destroyed, his wingman gets ballsy as if he doesn't notice what just happened to his friend, and he tries moving forward, but eventually a dragon gets an eye on him. He fires, but the dragon goes into the trees, but one of my other dragon teams has an angle, and so does the tank. Several minutes go by after the kill on that last BRDM. At this point, I'm confident that I've halted the Soviet advance. The high ground on my east is just absolutely littered with the burning wreckage and husks of Soviet armored vehicles. And then I am prompted with the victory screen to be a US Army total victory. I have 78 men okay, and I lost two guys in the tow. Whereas the Soviets, they took 95 men killed, 6 wounded. They lost 5 tanks, and they lost 18 armored vehicles. Overall, I think this mission went great. They hardly ever go this well. I'm happy with how my plan worked out. This scenario seems a bit easier than most, but I take these kind of victories when I can get them. What could I have done better? Well, the positioning of my tows was shit, and really that's probably what resulted in me losing the 2 guys when it got hit by the BMP's cannon. Anything else, let me know. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make me happy, like my shit, and subscribe. Thanks. Later.